during this week and yesterday, and I've become fond of asking people, have you ever heard of the Messianic movement? You know, they say, or sometimes people say, where do you go to synagogue? I say, well, in Palm Springs. And they, oh, what's the name of that one? Oh, Hav Shalom Messianic Congregation. So whenever this word Messianic is used, you know, I say it, and I say, have you ever heard of that? And you know, it's getting to be that a lot of people have heard something about the Messianic movement. Now, there are people who never heard of it, but, you know, we have had an impact over the last 50 years. Now, for some 2,000 years, the Jewish people among evangelical Christianity seem to be like irrelevant. We don't have any, we don't pay any attention to them. They have their ways and we have our ways. What do they have to do with us anyhow? After all, didn't God do away with the Old Testament? Or didn't God do away with the Jewish people? And so all of this has been on the shelf for 2,000 years. Now that's a big mistake. That's a big error. And we're going to talk about that later this morning. But imagine a 2,000-year-old mistake. That's a big deal. By people who are reading the Bible all the time. They're going on Sunday, there's a sermon, and then there's a Bible study, and then there's devotionals, and there's a whole lot of Bible going on. But for 2,000 years, this whole concept of the Jewish people is not talked about much, if at all, and is not dealt with at all, and it's all irrelevant. And that's a long time for people not to notice that the Bible is primarily about the Jewish people. How can you be reading the Bible all the time and not see that the Jewish people have there's a role for the Jewish people? How could that possibly be? Amazingly, 2,000 years, oops doesn't quite get across why. What went wrong here? But finally, in the fullness of time, God has done something, particularly in the last 50 years. And after all this time, this mistake has been rectified increasingly. Increasingly, Jewish people are willing to open themselves up to say, well, wait a minute, he was a Jewish man, and he did speak a Jewish language, and he did fulfill Jewish prophecies, why is it that he's a Gentile again? So Jewish people are waking up to the idea that why can't I remain Jewish and believe in Yeshua as the Messiah? But that blindness, which is beginning to come off of the eyes of Jewish people at an increasing rate, that blindness is also coming off of the eyes of Gentile people. Increasingly, Gentile people in various denominations across the board are suddenly, well, yeah, that's right, yeah, I agree with that, and suddenly it's available as a topic. So there is a blindness come off of the Jewish people's eyes, and a blindness that's coming off of the Gentile people's eyes. And for those of us, whether we're Jews or Gentiles, we have become increasingly welded together towards a common goal and friendship. And it's good. And it's God's doing. And we who gather here and in 1,000 other Messianic congregations and elsewhere, we are part of the biblical saga. And just like we read of events in the Bible and say, wow, it must have been really something to live at that time and to witness the God's miracles and so on. We're in there now. We're in the midst of a biblical saga We're in the middle of the middle. And the thing is, we're pioneering. You say, well, it's 50 years old and there's already 1,000 congregations. What kind? I mean, I'm late in the game. No, we're early. We're early. Everybody gets to be a pioneer. We're at only at the beginning of it. Isaiah says, of the increase of his government there shall be no end. We're on the ground floor. We're doing something new. Huh? That's a big deal. That's a purposeful thing to do with our lives. I see.